In a time when the world revolved around white domination, one man stood up to help end the apartheid in South Africa. Nelson Mandela was born on January 18, 1918, in Mavezo, South Africa, and was South Africa's first black president and was a civil rights activist who fought to end the apartheid in South Africa that began in the 1940s. Nelson Mandela committed his life to helping those in need, aiding in the fight against AIDS, poverty, hunger, and supporting more than 50 charities in his lifetime. He proved that equal respect and treatment of every person is and must continue to be an achievable reality everywhere in the world. Nelson Mandela was a modern-day prophet for human dignity whose voice was heard around the world. Few rival his work, dedication, and determination. Many people may only know Nelson Mandela as the first black president of South Africa, but don't know what he actually did. Well, during his journey to end the apartheid, Nelson Mandela was in prison for nearly 3 decades. After being released, Mandela was still determined to fight for the freedom of his people, even in the face of opposition. When South Africa was on the brink of civil war, Mandela was the one to encourage his supporters to remain peaceful. Nelson Mandela's taking the initiative in helping end poverty and hunger in his country are also proof of his leadership and determination, at one time even donating a third of his presidential salary to the Nelson Mandela Children's Fund. Of course, as with anything, there were risks and obstacles that came along the way. A prime example being Mandela's aforementioned imprisonment. In 1942, Nelson Mandela joined the African National Congress and helped direct peaceful acts of defiance against the government. But in 1956, Mandela was arrested, and the second time in 1961. He was sentenced to life in prison, but was instead released 27 years later into his sentence. Once released, he became president and played a major role in ending the apartheid. This doesn't even scratch the surface of the dedication Mandela had to helping others. Through Nelson Mandela's efforts, South Africa was able to be free from the apartheid that had started over 50 years ago. Silence surrounding the diseases such as AIDS and HIV were also broken, and millions were cared for. And he helped bring attention to poverty and hunger that was present in South Africa. In a world where it seems that no one wants to get involved, Nelson Mandela made a difference. Many have at times thought about how life might have been if Mandela was never around. It's an interesting thought considering how much Nelson Mandela actually did during his lifetime. Without Nelson Mandela, there might still be an apartheid in South Africa today. And then it may have come eventually, but who knows how long it may have actually taken. Not to mention the possibility of an all-out civil war today. Not only this, but there might not be as much attention around subjects such as hunger, poverty, and AIDS, in not just Africa, but around the world, since most wouldn't speak up about it due to embarrassment. Nelson Mandela should show how the power of one can change the lives of a million more. He should be viewed not just as a president or a good person, but someone who understood that it only takes one to not only save lives, but change the world.